Chapter 44 Trust Exercise. Gunshots rang out all around them, the thick, billowing smoke the only thing between Jeff and a sure death. He moved fast, threw himself to the ground, and rolled away from Lindsay, creating as much distance between each other as they could, like they had discussed. Get up, get going, I'll meet you there. Think of it like a trust exercise. Hell of a fucking trust exercise. It was the first time they'd called on the family without the rest of the crew. The others were still very much in the dark in case things fell through. It was safer that way. Jeff swore if they made it through this, he'd tell them everything. He wasn't comfortable keeping it from them as it was, but it had to be done. A bullet whizzed past him so close, he swore he felt the breeze, and he was briefly reminded he was still far from anything remotely resembling safety. He pulled himself to his feet and ran, heading directly into the rising sun, where he hoped there was a boat or chopper or plane or something waiting. He was weighed down by heavy body armor, as was Lindsay, but it didn't stop them from hauling ass. Anything but a direct hit at close range or a headshot would give them a fighting chance at a getaway. As if to remind him of the fact, a bullet landed square between his shoulders, striking his armor and knocking some of the wind out of him, more from the shock of being hit than the impact itself. Still, he didn't stop. In the corner of his eye, he saw Lindsay keeping pace, movements serpentine and erratic to evade the shots. He squinted into the sunrise and saw silhouetted figures returning fire. He made a beeline for them. Another smoke grenade sailed over his head, providing cover as he and Lindsay sprinted through the empty parking lot of Humane Labs. A little way ahead of them, two others were backing up while returning covering fire into anyone who emerged from the wall of smoke behind them. As they caught up to the others, they turned and ran ahead, leading them towards a small rubber dinghy just offshore. To Jeff's left, a somewhat panicked voice that sounded very much like James gave away just how last minute this plan was. Oh shit! Oh shit, goddamn, why is it so fucking open? Keep those smoke bombs coming. That voice was unmistakably Bruce, and seconds later, more smoke provided dearly needed cover as they negotiated the stretch of beach to the dinghy. Lindsay had enough momentum to jump the gap and land in the boat, catching her balance, but only just barely in time to prevent her toppling overboard on the other side. Jeff threw himself at the side of the dinghy, landing with a splash in the water and pulling himself over the edge, rolling onto the floor of the boat. Bruce and James gave the boat a shove to get it off the shore, climbing in remarkably ungracefully, but still managing to spring back to their feet and fire back at their pursuers as they broke through the smoke screen on the beach. Elise, you might want to step on it, James called out over the din. Jeff's eyes started to finally adjust, and he looked up to see James shooting a semi-automatic wildly in the direction from which they'd come. Bruce was taking more calculated shots, crouched next to him. Elise was at the helm. Hi, guys, Elise greeted them warmly, ignoring the chaos around them. So, where am I going? I could tell you, but I'm afraid I'd have to kill you, James joked. Alrighty then. Elise took off in seemingly no particular direction, more concerned with getting them out of immediate danger. Now that was a cunning stunt. Woo! Jeff exclaimed, his heart still pounding in his chest. The sounds of gunshots faded behind them, but Jeff knew it was temporary as they would surely be pursued. Is everyone okay? Bruce asked as soon as they were out of range. Lindsay patted herself down as if to double-check, not trusting her senses. I'm good. I'm fucking out of shape, Jeff huffed. But yeah, I'm okay. Sorry we're late. We had a little company. I guess they figured you might try something like this. Luckily, they didn't seem to be counting on it, and it was just a few snipers. James could take them out. James mimed finger guns at them and blew away the imaginary smoke. Hot, Lindsay deadpanned. I know, right? Elise enthused with a big, exaggerated smile and nod that Lindsay couldn't help laughing at. Jeff snorted. I'm just glad you showed up. I still can't believe you trusted us to, Bruce shot back. Desperate times, my friends. James smirked as the boat approached the seaplane just outside the bay. So, just for clarification, how desperate are you? Because one of you is getting in the plane, and Bruce has insisted he's flying. Ryan's timing was impeccable, materializing in the doorway as if on cue. Haven't you seen enough movies to know? Ryan taunted as he entered the room, ensuring the random's attention was fully focused on him and off of Michael and Gavin. You never want to get caught monologuing. The shorter random's eyes narrowed, piercing with a look that suggested they wanted nothing more than to put a blade through Ryan's vital organs. It was a look of seething, vile hatred that most of them could definitely relate to right now. I'll monologue as much as I goddamn want once I've spilled your guts all over the floor. The smaller random pulled off their bandana, no longer caring about concealing their identity, if that was even the purpose to begin with. They readied their blade like a snake ready to strike. Ryan's own blade was sheathed at his hip, but the random didn't give him any time to retrieve it, throwing themselves at him, lunging for his body, but the knife glanced off Ryan's heavy body armor, and he sidestepped the second slash. Recalculating, the random adjusted their stance and lunged again, this time grabbing the front of Ryan's jacket with their left hand, pulling themselves in close to Ryan, rather than the other way around, using the size difference to their advantage. This time, the blade struck home, sliding through the joins in the left side of Ryan's armor, the thickness of it preventing the blade from penetrating too deeply. But the sharp sting of steel sent a shock through Ryan's body and forced a guttural sound from his throat. The random grinned wickedly up at him. With a sharp intake of breath, Ryan locked his fingers around the wrist of the random's weapon hand, pulling it away from himself, using his height to spin it above the random's head and twisted them around fully, so the back was pressed against his chest, almost as if they were dancing. He pinned their hand against their chest to still their knife and leaned in close to their ear. Sounds a little clumsy. Maybe try eviscerated. What? The random growled and dropped the knife from their right hand into their free waiting left hand and swung backwards again, barely missing Ryan's arm and only just scratching his armor. They grunted in frustration, instead throwing an elbow hard into Ryan's chest and twisted free of his grip, swapping their knife back to their dominant hand. Ryan sprung backwards, putting himself out of striking distance. If you're going to monologue, he explained, you'll want a better vocabulary. In the corner of his eye, Ryan could see that Jeremy and Trevor were in the door with their guns drawn. Ryan finally acknowledged their presence and flashed them a look. It said, "This is mine." Jeremy nodded understandingly. He trusted Ryan could do it. Ryan needed to do it. Needed to prove himself he could. The smaller Random and Ryan were locked in combat, preventing Jeremy and Trevor from getting a clear shot at the bald one, who backed up instinctively, straight into the tray holding the blood collection bags, the overfilled bags falling to the ground. They took another step back, directly onto one of the bags, and it split under the heel of their boot, blood spilling over the floor and pooling beneath the chair. Ryan ignored them, focusing on the more aggressive Random, ready to strike again. "I'm going to rip out your entrails and make a scarf of them," the Random spat. "How's that for vocabulary?" "There's room for improvement." He unsheathed his own knife. "We're gonna do this." The Random scoffed. "You better believe it, buddy boy. I've been waiting for this chance." A soft scoff from the far side of the room reminded Ryan of the other Random's presence, and it was just enough for them to try to get the jump on him. The Random faked to the left, then came from the right and swung for Ryan's face. He jumped backwards to dodge, and his back slammed into the wall behind him. He braced himself against the wall and kicked the Random in the gut, throwing them off balance and winding them, sending them sprawling backwards. They caught themselves just before they went crashing into Michael and sprung back at Ryan, who lunged forward to meet them, blade bared. The Random was determined, but Ryan had a longer reach and grabbed the Random's weapon hand, twisting the blade away from him and yanking their arm towards himself as he thrust his own knife up into their abdomen with his other hand. The Random stopped in their tracks. They gasped for the impact, coughed involuntarily as the blade tore through their diaphragm, and suddenly their breathing was obstructed. They could barely more than splutter, frantically panting for breath. Ryan pulled them in closer, to almost whisper in their ear, dark and menacing, "Is it everything you hoped for?" The Random coughed a laugh that only succeeded in sounding painful and spraying blood across Ryan's shoulder. "You bet your ass." They gagged, and blood ran from the corner of their mouth. Ryan gave the knife a twist, driving it deeper into their chest, holding them still through their convulsions. Eventually, they went limp in his arms. Meanwhile, the bald Random was seemingly attempting to sneak away when their boots slipped in the blood that had spilled from the bag. As if a light went on in their mind, They immediately grabbed as many of the blood bags as they could and tore into them with their knife until only one intact bag remained, one of Gavin's. They clutched it to their chests as if it were their own, their one bargaining chip. Trevor glanced at Ryan with a slight nod. Ryan returned it, and Trevor took careful aim. "Motherfucker!" the random yelped as Trevor's bullet grazed their calf, springing into the air and scooting to put Gavin's chair between themselves and Trevor and Jeremy, who were now attempting to surround them. They were clutching the still warm blood bag to their chests with one arm, holding their knife against it with their other, threatening to slash it open and spill the precious contents. Trevor leveled his gun at their head, and they moved to strategically stand as close as possible to Gavin to make any shot at them more difficult. "You don't want to do that," they hissed through clenched teeth. "I can save him." They nodded towards Gavin, who was pale and unconscious in the chair. "Or I can see that he dies." They pressed the knife against the bag, not quite enough pressure to pierce it. "Your choice." Everything happened so quickly. Gavin's eyes snapped open, his hand flicked to the table, and for the first time, Michael noticed he'd managed to wiggle his hands free of his bonds. He had progressively loosened the grips on his arms since they'd woken up, and now he had just enough wiggle room to slip one hand free and swing his arm back to hit the random's leg, just near the graze. The random jumped backwards in shock, the movement causing them to simultaneously slash and drop the blood pack, but it was enough of a distraction for Trevor to leap across and wrestle them into a headlock, Ryan following. The random struck out with their knife, but it didn't make contact before Ryan managed to grab their arm and wrench it free of their grip while Trevor kept them still. Jeremy got to work on freeing Michael and Gavin, carefully removed the needles from their arms, wrapping them with bandages to stop the bleeding. "Gavin, you sneaky asshole!" Michael cried out while Jeremy wrapped his arm. "Are you fucking kidding me?" Gavin grinned dopily, and he stumbled a little over his words before he responded. He wasn't by any means in a good way, but he wasn't as close to death as he'd been making out. He'd been playing it up perfectly. "See, I'm capable of lots of stuff, Michael," he replied croakily with a smile. "You just gotta trust me." "Gavin, you scared the shit out of me. Don't ever do that again." Gavin nodded, relaxing back into the chair and closing his eyes, seeming to almost instantly drop off to sleep. Meanwhile, Ryan landed a right hook across the random's face. There was a loud crack as it connected with their cheekbone, and Ryan shook his hand angrily, like it hurt him almost as much as it hurt them. It seemed worth it. "Tell us everything you know." The random laughed. "Well, that might take some time. I am a doctor after all." Their snide remark was caught off by a sharp intake of breath as they fought to contain a scream, while Ryan twisted their arm into an unnatural position, threatening to snap it like a twig with only a little more pressure. Ryan flipped their knife in one hand, holding their hands still and splaying their fingers out with his other. "Let's start with something a bit more specific, then," he suggested darkly. "How many more of there are you?" The random swallowed. "And why should I tell you that?" Ryan sighed, only half feigning exasperation. "Look, I'm just going to start cutting off fingers. When we get to the correct number, say stop." Without hesitation, he angled the knife in such a way that he could make a clean cut through the base of their middle finger. Incredibly, as the knife drew blood, they giggled and stammered, "I don't have enough fingers." Trevor and Jeremy exchanged a worried look before both turned to Ryan, eyes wide. "Yeah, that's what I thought," Ryan said gruffly, loosening his grip on their arm and grimacing at the pain in his side. Jeremy pulled out his pistol and trained it on the random, and Trevor slowly released them from the headlock and backed off. They seemed like they might be a little more cooperative now, so Ryan tried again. "Who sent you?" "Ah, now that one's a little trickier." "Better start talking, then," Jeremy cut in, moving closer to better threaten them, but they hardly seemed fazed. Ryan yanked up on their arm again, and they winced in pain. "You're in deeper than you think," they gasped with a hint of a crazed laugh. "You've made some very powerful enemies, and they have lots of friends who can—" "Traitor!" a voice yelled from the doorway. Ryan froze, his brain seized on the word, and it was almost as if he could feel the letters on the back of his neck burning. "No." A shot echoed through the room, and the random teetered backwards, a chunk of their skull suddenly replaced by an explosion of bone and brain matter and red mist. They gasped a few times, shuddered, and fell limply to the ground. It immediately snapped Ryan out of it. Reacting instinctively, he threw his knife in the direction of the door, the blade embedding in the wooden frame as footsteps took off running down the hall outside. Shit! Ryan looked at the bloody mess that had been their only solid source of information, feeling a lurching disappointment at how close they'd come to getting some truth if their own teammates had felt it necessary to take them out. His eyes fell to the slick pools of blood on the floor, a mixture of the two randoms, some of his own, and Michael and Gavin's. He looked up at Gavin and saw him passed out, and the crushing realization hit him that Gavin's best chance of survival was now spread thin across the concrete floor. Jeremy started to take off after the fleeing random, but Ryan called him back. Jeremy, no. We gotta get them out of here first. You heard. More coming. Jeremy looked torn, but took one look at Gavin and Michael and nodded. Yeah, okay. He immediately got on the radio. Matt, one just fled. Keep your eyes peeled. Don't want a single one of these fucks getting away. Got it, Matt called back. No movement out here yet. I'll keep you posted. Jack, we need evac now. There are more incoming. Not sure what to expect, but keep an eye out. Are all the others okay? Michael asked, his voice harsh and croaky. That we know of. Ryan nodded, replying maybe a little too honestly. That's not... Michael shook his head a little, about to crack a joke, but feeling dizzy again, he reconsidered. Yeah, okay, good. Michael shifted slowly. He sat forward, and the world lurched around him. He swung his legs over the side of the chair and felt his feet contact the earth. When he stood, his legs immediately gave out from under him, crumpling under his weight like paper. Ryan caught him before he fell too far. Trevor joined him, propping him up on his other side. Michael's focus was still only on Gavin. Gavin, you with me, boy? Gavin made a noise of recognition at his name, but he wasn't doing well. He was struggling to even move. He might have been playing up how bad he was for the sake of their captors, but now it was evident he wasn't faking as much of it as Michael had hoped. Michael steadied himself against Trevor in the chair. I'm okay. Help Gavin. Ryan went to Gavin's side. Come here, Gavin, he said as he scooped him up in his arms. He was in no shape to do so. He'd just been stabbed. He'd been pressing one hand against his own bleeding side, but now he used it to hoist Gavin up bridal style, Gavin's own arms loosely snaking around his shoulders in an attempt to hold some of his own weight. You okay with him, Rybread? Michael asked, still trying in vain to shake off the effects of blood loss. I'm fine. My armor took most of it, Ryan reassured him. I'm okay. Jeremy was keeping watch at the door in case the other random should appear, or reinforcements arrive. We should move. It's all clear out here. I'll cover us. Ryan nodded, following behind Trevor and Michael with Gavin in his arms. Jeremy led the way, ever vigilant for the reappearance of the remaining random, the one with the skull bandana. They made it to the exit they had come in through without incident. Where the fuck are they? Jeremy asked, his anxiety rising. Maybe they just made a run for it? Trevor suggested. Given the unsettling behavior of the other two, Ryan doubted it. We clear out there, Matt? Trevor asked through the comms. Oh, Trevor, glad to see you're not dead, man, Matt replied. Thanks. Yeah, looks pretty clear out here. No movement on this side, anyway. Should have a clear run to the Bob. I'll cover you. Jeremy swung the door open, and almost instantly a bullet ricocheted off of it, dangerously close to his head, and he slammed the door shut. Fuck! Jeremy exclaimed. Matt, what the fuck? What was that? Shit, man, I don't know. Give me a sec. I don't think they know I'm here. Ryan looked back at Michael, who was still nervously looking at Gavin. They didn't have much time. Oh, shit. Guys, we got company out here. Holy shit, dude. There are choppers incoming, Matt called down from the roof. You gotta move now. Mika responded over the comms. I see him. Andy, Jack, be ready to get on the guns and give us cover if we need it. You guys, get your asses over here now. Matt, Trevor called. Got eyes on that shooter? I can't see anything. I need a point of reference. Jeremy seemed to consider his words for a moment, before he nodded. Ryan recognized the look. What's your escape plan here, Jeremy? I don't have one, he admitted, but I have an idea. Matt, I'm expressing ultimate faith in you. What? Jeremy flung open the door and ran for it. Another shot ricocheted off the door where he'd been standing only a second earlier. Ryan froze, staring after Jeremy as he ran, serpentine, across the open field, fighting every instinct to go after him. A shot that sounded like it had come from not too far away was closely followed by another coming from the roof, and then everything went silent. Ryan watched as Jeremy took a round to the chest and was knocked off his feet from the shock more so than the impact. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. Oh shit! Matt's voice came over the comm. Got him! Got him! You're clear! Without hesitation, Ryan shoved open the door and hurried out, still carrying Gavin in his arms, Trevor and Michael following behind them, Matt keeping them covered from the roof. Trevor and Ryan took Michael and Gavin straight to the cargo bob. Jack, we've got incoming. Gavin needs help, and Jeremy's been shot. Ryan had taken on the same authoritative tone Jeff had used. Matt, get to Jeremy. Ryan reached the cargo bob and handed Gavin over to Jack and Andy, immediately turning around to go back for Jeremy. Trevor wasn't far behind him, and Matt was at the edge of the roof starting to climb down when his head whipped back around. Shit! They're not dead, Ryan! They're not dead! He pointed in the direction of some shrubs near a low wall. The angle was such that, even though the sun had now risen enough to illuminate the whole area, Matt wouldn't have been able to see them take position. Jeremy was moving, and Trevor and Matt were going for him, so Ryan went after the random. His side stung, but he ignored it, breaking into a run. He couldn't risk them taking another shot. As he approached, he could see the skull-faced random was on the ground, reaching for the rifle they'd shot Jeremy with. It was high-powered, and Ryan's blood ran cold, knowing a shot from it would nearly be enough to shatter his own heavy plate armor. Jeremy's light Kevlar stood almost no chance of saving him from serious injury. He kicked it out of their reach. They gagged on blood. Matt's shot had been well placed in their back, high up so that it had punctured their lung, and judging by the way they were crawling, had likely damaged their spinal cord. They looked up, as if only just noticing his presence, their bandana slipping from their face and hood falling away, their large, dark eyes flashing recognition at him. Ryan was conflicted. He wanted to hurt them for what she'd done to Jeremy, but he was in too much of a hurry, and he needed to end it, so he made it quick. He took his knife in one hand and a fistful of their hair in the other, and slit their throat. To his surprise, they smiled warmly back at him, no trace of malicious intent as they managed to quietly mumble, "Hello." He dropped their head and left them to bleed out, rushing back to where Matt and Trevor were hoisting Jeremy to his feet. The sound of choppers above them grew louder, and a line of black vans approached from the east. Ryan squinted against the rising sun. They looked disturbingly like police choppers. "Guys, move it! We gotta go!" Miko radioed over the comms. Together, they managed to get Jeremy back to the cargo bob, and they all climbed in, frantically working out what they could do to help. "Hold on, everyone! I'm getting us the fuck out of here!" Mika took off just as men dressed in all black jumped out of the vans and gunfire erupted around them. "Circle around," Jeff instructed Bruce as soon as the plane was airborne. "I want to try to swing by Sandy Shores to see if the guys made it out." "Damn, Jeff, you want to pull a riskier stunt?" Bruce retorted as he obediently brought the plane around. The seaplane, the Dodo, was tiny and not built for speed or maneuverability, but that wasn't exactly why Bruce had chosen it. He had a different kind of getaway plan in mind. Lindsay had gone with Elise and James in the dinghy. Their plan was to head to a boathouse a little further north and lay low. Jeff and Bruce would act as the bait. They just needed to outrun them until they got to Mount Chiliad, which shouldn't have been too hard in a plane. "Oh shit! Are those choppers? They're buzzards! How the fuck did they get choppers?" Jeff demanded frantically upon spying the helicopters spreading out in the distance, two heading towards their position, with at least one other heading in the opposite direction, towards where they were keeping Michael and Gavin. "Whoever these guys are, there sure are a lot of them, and you guys have pissed them off big time." Jeff frowned. "These guys are big fucking trouble. We need to figure out how the fuck to take him down. Right now, we just need to make sure we get out of this in one piece, Bruce added. That'd also be good. I think we might need some help. Can I borrow your phone? Bruce dug around in his pocket and handed over his phone. Jeff was briefly distracted by the lock screen, bearing a photo of the band's sex swing. What? Bruce asked, raising an eyebrow. Jeff shook his head. Nothing. Just hadn't pegged you as a fan. He dialed the number he knew he could reach Steffi on, and she picked up immediately. Gonna need some more backup. The boys, too. Send whoever's closest. Broadcast the chip information to everyone in the network. We'll deal with the fallout of that later. I need everyone to be able to watch each other's backs. Let Jack know what's up. And Bruce and I are in a dodo heading toward Chiliad. So if someone would like to help us out, too, that'd be awesome. Jeff hung up, gave the phone back to Bruce, and rubbed his face, feeling the effects of sleep deprivation hitting him, knowing full well he'd be pumping adrenaline in just a few minutes. This is stressful as dicks,